Hey, it's me, Big P, and I'm here to share with y'all the plans I have for the 3.14 Ultimatum League. Dusting off a bit of a classic, going for the Volatile Dead Inquisitor with wands and Poet's Pen and Spellslinging and all that good stuff. I had seen a couple people using the Necro, a couple Elementalists last league, and Detonate Dead was a very popular Inquisitor build. So I just kind of was able to kind of bridge the gap between those two. Whether or not it works, I kind of want to see for myself how the new mana reservation stuff, whether or not we can go low life and get a bunch more spell damage. I think this build will be a nice like vessel for a lot of experimentation like that. And we'll eventually be able to push well into the end game. Um, Probably on a pretty decent budget. I mean, it remains to be seen. Hopefully, the Poet's Pen isn't like secretly part of a super duper meta build, but nowadays it's very cheap within the first weekend. It should drop by the end of it, and even until then, I don't really mind using either a self cast setup for the Desecrate or just totems. I think is what I use a lot of times. I need to use it for single target for leveling. But anyway, let's just kind of get into the plan and why I would choose something like Inquisitor. Unfortunately, I was not able to rip a build directly from PoE Ninja and pass it off as content of my own, but I'm comfortable enough with the Inquisitor and kind of just made an amalgamation of the passive tree heat maps for the Detonate Dead build and the Slinger build. So why Inquisitor? Well, I mean, this is just going to be real quick. Pious Path is amazing, especially for an early league start. You get to like save a lot of alts instead of rolling your utility flasks. You can just run stuff like with Zeri's Promise and not even worry about the other slots. And I wonder what else we can stuff in there. Maybe we can get an early Cinder Swallow Urn, some shit like that. It's pretty good. And then Inevitable Judgment just is really nice. It's just you're gonna be critting. The combo of these two is just so much damage that it's pretty great. It's kind of nice to uh, have the Ascendancy be less of a glass cannon as maybe it was when this build was initially done. I mean, this build is a little bit different, honestly. I would say it's kind of hard to compare a build that was dual wielding Poet's Pens and using like a Count's Heart as a chest piece and like weird stuff like that. We are gonna have to reserve a 6 or I guess technically a 5 link Volatile Dead and then trigger the utility on the wands, but we'll get into that. All you need to know about Inquisitor is that's fantastically strong. Once you get something like Corrupted Soul on your build that splits your hybrid um, defenses, that being HP and Energy Shield, it's just amazing. I think it's going to be great for clearing the ultimatums. I guess we'll go into that. That's kind of why I want to pick Volatile Dead as a skill. The AI for it is pretty fantastic. I think it'll be good to be able to set up for an ultimatum, set up for the multi-maven boss fights, all that sort of crap. It just doesn't get much better than Volatile Dead. They've nerfed it a couple times, but it's still just so damn strong. It's kind of hard to say no. Uh, Worst comes to absolute worst, and the build is like kind of like it's just way better to do it as Necro, and Inquisitor just doesn't make the cut. You can just kind of cut out these parts, the fire damage and the whatchamacallit, the corpse relevant stuff. And then you can just kind of do the Frostbolt with the Vol Ice Nova, which got a huge buff. But hopefully I won't have to do that because I like Volatile Dead. I think Volatile Dead mechanically is going to be fantastic for ultimatums. And I kind of honestly am just curious as to how my new computer hardware can deal with all those balls. So if you're not familiar with the build, I'll kind of go into what I plan to use for the skill setup. So we are going to reserve. I'm not really sure if we're going to be able. The first two supports are both 140 mana multipliers. I feel like it's going to be pretty huge for Spellslinger. So much so that the tree pretty much immediately has to run to Sovereignty to get 644. That's 14 reduced mana reserved, and might even have to stretch all the way just for this little extra 4% here. I really hope that's not the case. Probably going to run a Conqueror's Efficiency to get that little bit more. Kind of what I'm afraid of. That's why the auras in this build are marked with a question mark because I'm not sure what we're actually going to be able to run. I haven't leveled with one of these. Maybe we'll be able, maybe like throwing it in a 5 link will be better, and we'll see. But anyway, the way that it works is Volatile Dead consumes corpses. Spell Cascade makes it consume a bunch more. Conk Effect is just a huge, it basically doesn't matter at all for a build like this because the initial explosion isn't really what we're relying on for damage. It's the balls that are created after the initial explosion, which seek a target and just kill it. So you basically, this would be the 3 link, pretty much. An Inquisitor can run controlled destruction without too much of you don't have to worry so much about losing that actual crit, especially if you can run. I'm pretty sure this works with Spellslinger. I'm almost positive, or at least not in terms of reducing actual mana reserve, but I mean applying the more crit chance, increased crit chance, and more elemental damage to here when we proc it with our attack trigger. We're not actually going to be casting this. We're going to be attacking with Frenzy, Power Charge, and Critical, Inspiration, and Barrage. You could maybe throw this into a gloves setup. I know you can get like blind, I think is what I would be going for. You know, just kind of like a better sort of 5 link for the spell. It's really mostly utility though. Frenzy will just give us consistent frenzy charges that contributes to attack speed, which is making the build feel good. Power charges are nice to have. You kind of have to do something like this. Inquisitor itself doesn't provide power charges, and there's not a lot of other ways unless you get like kind of weird corrupted implicits and shit. But you know, this is a starter build, so this will just these two are a lot of bang for your buck. And then again, inspiration and barrage. Barrage just helps the attacks come out faster. You don't really level any of the green gems besides the actual spells that we're using for damage. You really don't want to level because if you like bring this up to 20, the dex requirement becomes insane. So yeah, it's not like that's actually doing any damage, and that goes the same for barrage, the support. And yeah, basically it's a 1-button build. I mean, you're just going to be holding down your attack button, your frenzy button, and you know, you'll have to move when something attacks you, but ideally the volatile deads are moving faster than you can. I think the divergent volatile dead, obviously you won't be able to league start with something like that. I think that one has increased orb movement speed, which is nice. That'll help for clear and really effective DPS because the sooner the balls hit something, the sooner it's doing the damage. So I don't know. This is your defense. I'm not really sure if I guess Molten Shell is probably going to be the best still. Maybe even a Vol Molten Shell because we're not going to run the Vol Righteous Fire. It's way too big of a chunk of damage. I mean, maybe we can actually get away with running Righteous Fire, but that's a bit too much of a stretch. I don't want to have to rely on reserving for Purity of Fire, and then yeah, we'll get into that. Right now, all I know is that Frost Shield is good. Inquisitor is kind of an ascendancy that's going to be able to use Frost Shield probably without even really thinking about it. And that goes, I mean, Molten Shell is just Molten Shell. Nice to have. That's probably all we'll really need in terms of mitigation. You can probably get way into it. We're actually going to be dual wielding and not using a shield. So stuff like Lancing Blows with recovery on block, we don't get to use any of that. Maybe if we craft a really good shield, we'll have to adjust the tree and go into stuff like the shield stuff here, Arcane Guarding, Mystic Bulwark, Arcane Swiftness. I know pretty much every Necromancer is using a shield, and there's a lot of good shield options, I'm not going to lie, but I kind of want to focus more on damage because I think Inquisitor can get tanky. You know, your starting position is really nice. It's close to the life wheel, and you get, you know, a bunch of life here and some armor and ES here. You know, you just get a lot of tankiness. You almost have 200% increased life from the tree. We'll see how it goes. Let's go back to the skills though. When you're leveling before you have Poet's Pen, hopefully I'll be able to get it by the 2nd day tops once I get into maps and really want to start like moving. Hopefully I'll be able to save up enough cash and it won't be super expensive, you know, knock on wood. But yeah, Desecrate with Spell Totem. You can't use Spell Cascade, unfortunately, with the totem setup, but you can use multiple totems. I'm not sure if this is actually worth it or not. I think I did use this when I was doing some other corpse crap, and it ended up being all right. I mean, if nothing else, the totems, you know, we're not looking to deal damage with the totems. It's just, you know, totems can die. and they'll start getting targeted by stuff. But once we do go into maps and stuff, the Poet's Pen that we'll use normally in a build like this, or rather in the old version of the build, you would put your damage links in here and then use like a Calm's Heart for a bunch of life and stuff like that. We unfortunately can't do that right now, but you'll be able to kind of work around the most annoying part of the corpse skill, which is generating corpses with Desecrate and Spell Cascade. This will pretty much immediately bring you up to the max number of corpses that a Desecrate can make, even after we get +2 here on the tree on Undertaker. We might actually be able to anoint this later if we need to. And then Body Swap is for movement. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to use this. I haven't used new Body Swap, and it might be too clunky. But Blade Blast, oh no, it got nerfed. We don't care because all we're going to use it for is unnerve enemies for 4 seconds on hit. This just makes them take increased spell damage, huge more multiplier. You just throw it somewhere in your build. You could even put it in the cast when damage taken, but that's a little bit less consistent. Hopefully it won't run into issues with this. We are going to be triggering this on every other attack because we're only using one Poet's Pen, I think. I don't think we're going to be able to use 2 because you do kind of want your other wand to be a good enough wand to actually give you spell damage. And then, yeah, the auras, we're going to see what we can get away with between the Vitality nerf. I think we're still going to run it just because Inquisitor double dips on any region that we get, so it's fantastic. But, you know, with the whole flat mana reserve thing versus however much the Spellslinger reservation itself is going to be, and then include potential low life shenanigans we can get into. I'm not really sure. I'm pretty much just going to run this stuff on the fly. And, you know, we'll just see how it goes because hopefully we can run more. Like, it would suck to not be able to run any auras with something like this because then you're kind of just relying on the spell by itself, and then all your, you know, it all needs to come from the tree. But, you know, and let's get into the only items that I would really suggest for the build. The Poet's Pen is going to be mandatory unless you get, I mean, even the trigger socketed spell stuff now with the nerfs making the cooldown 8 seconds, like that's not going to be consistent enough for mapping and bossing and stuff like that. So Poet's Pen it is. You know, it's a pretty respectable you know, sort of, even after all the nerfs, it's just such a fantastic little item that we're using it basically for the utility of automating the corpse generation for Desecrate and either movement with Body Swap or some damage with Blade Blast. And then, you know, everything else, it's kind of not really SSF friendly because I am relying on, I'm really banking on buying a pen pretty early. But another thing you can kind of aim for is Yoke of Suffering. I mean, it's technically target farmable, not really, but it's just the sort of thing that makes it so that our fire damage can shock, and then it's a 10% more damage multiplier after that. As long as you're not running Elemental Focus, I think you can go for this, and it's pretty nice. It's just a little bit of attributes and resistances, nothing too crazy. It kind of sucks that it doesn't have life on it or anything like that the more I look at it, so you probably eventually want to craft yourself a fancy amulet for a build like this. But this is nice for leveling, I guess, you know, even though you can use it as 70. I think it's a nice, it's always felt like a lot of damage for a build like this. And what else do we want to go into? I mean, this is already kind of a long video for something that's not entirely a sure shot. If you are interested in seeing how the build goes, I'll be streaming this probably the whole first week. I think I'm going to really try and push this to the limit and sort of streamline myself into getting deep into the end game and seeing how far I can go. Unless it's a total disaster and I respec into the Frostbolt Ice Nova one, I think should be pretty cool, pretty fun. Got to admit, I'm a little nervous it's going to crash my computer, but hey, that's just the risk that comes with this game nowadays. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like and sub and all that shit. I'll have a Path of Building link, pastebin, whatever, in the description. And yeah, I'll see you this weekend.